Hello everybody and welcome to this gameplay guide and feature breakdown for the Power and Politics patch for Total War Rome 2. Yep, it's 2017 and Total War Rome 2 just got another patch. This patch is available to play right now by opting into an open beta on Steam and will be available for everyone on November 30th. If you need more info or help on that, check the description of this video. This patch adds some expanded features to current systems and fixes a few long-standing bugs. There have been no changes to AI or any changes to battles, except for a small rebalance of some of the historical battles. So in this video I'm going to walk you through the most notable changes and then teach you the new political system. First off, Forever Gone is the in-game encyclopedia. It took 4 years, almost the same amount of time it took to load the building browser, but it's now gone and replaced with cleaner, more succinct in-game panels. While this is a greatly requested feature and I'm glad it's made its way in, it doesn't feel fully finished. By right-clicking a unit, you can see their stats and descriptions in full, however it doesn't tell you what you need to do to recruit them. Similarly, right-clicking a building will give you great information about it and the building chain, but there's no route. Let's say you had squalor issues in a town and your town had no expandable slots. You wouldn't know what to build to solve the problem. You can't look it up anywhere. You need to wait until you can expand, then hover over each chain and open it up to see its long-standing effects. When you do see a building you like, it might require a technology. You can't click this to see where it is in the tech tree, instead having to remember its image or name and figure out what tree it's in. Furthermore, you can't right-click technologies, traditions, skills, or anything in the politics screens. These are all small issues obviously, but it's functionality that the online encyclopedia had, so it just feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Another notable feature is that when a general or agent ranks up, you can now see an expanded screen of their skills. No more will you have to wonder what lies beyond +1 authority. Instead, now you can just choose what you want and specialize without making any mistakes. Okay, so now for the main faction screen. This is where most of the changes are taking place, and it's where I'll teach you how to utilize the new power and politics features in the game. Let's start off with something simple. You now have the option to change government type. This button is just below the government overview in the politics tab. There are 4 government types in the game: a league, empire, kingdom, and republic. A league has a military research focus with cheaper armies. An empire mostly boosts research and keeps your political parties happy. A kingdom increases tax and experience, and a republic increases civil research and gives a large public order boost. Basically, you can just find which one suits your playstyle and choose that. The requirement is 10,000 gold to convert your government. However, an empire also requires high imperium and political party influence, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Essentially, you'll want to work toward being an empire, as it's the easiest to manage with no negative effects. If you start as an empire, which some factions do, then you don't really ever have to worry about looking at the screen or changing your government type, unless you specifically want to play to the strengths of one of the other types. You can also switch government types as much as you want if you can afford it, however there are large public order and loyalty debuffs associated with doing so for a few turns, so make sure you're prepared for that. And no, changing your government type does not rename the faction. Rome is just Rome, whether it's a republic or an empire. Back to the politics screen. In the top left, we have the government overview. This essentially shows a breakdown of the share of political seats you control. Some factions, such as Rome, will have up to 4 political parties, and some, such as Egypt, will have just 2. Here, I've played as the Seleucids, and we can see that there are 3 political parties. One of them is mine, the Seleucid dynasty, and this cannot be changed. Hovering over the graphic, or reading below, we can see the percentage share we own. This is called the influence. The higher your influence, the better. For every 12.5% influence, you'll hit a milestone of effects. These effects cover research, public order, tax, and morale, and are displayed at all times on the left side of the screen or by hovering over each milestone. The first 2 milestones are actually negative effects, so you'll really want to avoid falling below 25% influence. Everything above 25% is positive, and as I said, the higher the better. There's absolutely no downside to high influence, so your goal is to push for 100%. In the center of the screen, you'll see the other parties you're contending with. You can see that parties have ownership of regions. The amount of regions they own is decided by the influence they share. A party with, say, 70% influence will own about 70% of the regions that your faction owns. To check what regions they own, click the tactical map on the campaign and choose the new political party filter. This will display the regions as they're broken down politically. You still own and control these regions as you normally would. The only difference is that if there is a civil war, the ones that you don't own belonging to the political party that caused the war will defect to the enemy. So why and how would a political party defect? Parties have a loyalty rating. If the loyalty of a party drops below 0, there will be a percentage chance each turn that they will cause a secession, declare war, and leave your faction completely, founding their own. Their loyalty is determined by a few factors, most notably their party traits. Each party has 2 traits. These traits are essentially goals that you need to fulfill to keep the party happy. For instance, an agriculturalist party will gain loyalty if you have a food surplus. Have negative food and you'll lose that loyalty. A patriotic party will have -5 loyalty for every enemy army present in your territory. So you can see how these traits affect gameplay. To keep a party happy, try to abide by their traits. Parties also have a 3rd trait, and this is determined by the party leader's political views. Leaders come and go naturally, so the 3rd trait can shift around, and this creates a bit more dynamic gameplay. What's more, you can see the successor to a party leader. If they have a trait that would make your life easier, then it might be worth trying to assassinate the leader to speed things up. The other factors that affect loyalty are winning and losing battles, having generals that belong to parties die in battle, changing your government type, and a few other minor things like edicts and events. You can take 2 actions in this screen that just cost some money: Provoke and Purge. Provoke will attempt to get the selected party to start a civil war. You might want to do this if the political faction is small and you can manage the war quickly. You can only do it if there's a risk of war anyway, so it's kind of like starting it on your own terms. Once a civil war starts, a new replacement party is created with new traits, so you're always managing the same amount of parties, but you can roll the dice on hoping that the next one has traits aligned with how you'll play. The Purge option will attempt to reduce the target party's influence. It severely hurts their loyalty, but is a quick and ruthless way to diminish their influence, increasing yours and others. Next, we'll move on to the character screen. Here you can see all the generals and statesmen in your faction. On the left side, you can see each political party's tab, and expanding a party's tab, it'll show you the generals and statesmen under it. Generals and statesmen are the same. A general can become a statesman if you disband his army or he gets wounded. A statesman can become a general if he's assigned an army if you want him to be in the field. So on the left hand side of the panel, you can hire a statesman directly here. It's like hiring a general, but you're just not assigning him an army. The only difference between a statesman and a general is that a statesman can go on a mission, whereas a general is busy commanding. We'll get to that a bit later though. So each character has a gravitas and ambition. Gravitas is sort of multiplied by ambition to affect his party's overall influence. So all things being equal, 2 characters of 2 different political parties, each with 100 gravitas, would net out the influence evenly between them. They'd both share 50% of the party if they both started from scratch. If one character has more gravitas, the influence will start tipping in their party's favor each turn, 51%, 52%, etc. When you have 3 or 4 characters all in different parties, all with different gravitas, then it starts fluctuating a bit more. If a powerful general who had 200 gravitas died in battle, suddenly the balance will go heavy out of whack, and that general's party would suffer. It sort of creates power vacuums, and to avoid a shock to the system, you don't want to get anyone too powerful. To increase gravitas, and therefore increase influence over time, you'll need to secure promotions for your characters, or to lower influence, you'll need to spread rumors about them. You can also increase gravitas by fighting and winning battles, so in theory you should just try and have multiple armies with multiple leaders representing different factions, or rotate your leaders around. Within your own political party, statesmen can embezzle funds to try and secure you some cash by spending influence. They can also go on missions. There are 3 missions with different outcomes. You can choose to venture out on a diplomatic mission with a chance to improve relations with another faction. You can choose to improve public order in one of your provinces, or you can pay to organize a feast to fix a food shortage. These are basically random chance missions that you pay for, and will put the person out of action for a turn. It can even get them killed if it goes wrong. The only exception to this is your faction leader. If your faction leader is a statesman, he can't go on diplomatic missions, and if he's a general, he can't secure promotions. He's already the top dog. Doing these missions will lower loyalty for other political parties, so only using your own men will essentially cause strife. Using other political parties' men will increase their party's loyalty, but also increase their individual gravitas. So, if you've been paying attention, this means that if, for instance, a political party has low loyalty, and you're worried that they might cause a civil war, you can perform actions and win battles with their generals and statesmen. Doing this will increase their party's loyalty, reducing the cause of a civil war. However, it will increase their gravitas, in turn increasing their influence, diminishing yours, and lowering your faction-wide effects. The problem is then amplified the bigger you are. The more territory you own, the higher your imperium. The higher your imperium, the worse the loyalty for other political parties, and the more expensive political actions become. So essentially, you're likely to have more issues with party rivalry the bigger you get and have a more expensive time dealing with it. The last things you can do to help out political parties is do quick marriages, assassinations, and adoptions. It's kind of like a way of manipulating loyalty and gravitas by moving people around, and gets you out of a sticky situation fast. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about the political system. There's a few flaws that I can think of. One is pretty minor, and that's that it's more effective to suicide a general in battle than it is to politically assassinate him. You don't need to do this often, but it can help remove a problem in a hurry. It's a guaranteed success, it's free, and it has less of a loyalty penalty by a huge amount. So I'm not sure why you'd ever click to actually assassinate someone. It's always way better to just put them on a horse, send them into battle, and let them die. The bigger issue, which I kind of can't believe isn't fixed, is if you know there's a chance of civil war erupting, you can just disband the armies that are led by the generals of that party, and it seems that when the war occurs, the towns will flip to the enemy, but they won't have any armies in them. Then you can re-recruit your armies and just take the towns back. It needs a failsafe that if a political party has no characters or no armies, it should probably just generate one or two, otherwise it's just a waste of time and it can be easily manipulated. Knowing the risk of civil war before it happens is essential, but allows you to completely game it. And it's the same issue we had with the Emperor Edition Civil Wars. You'd have this massive civil war that rips your towns in half, but no armies to fight, so you just take everything back. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope I explained it clearly enough. There's a lot to take in, so let me know if you enjoyed this video. It's great to be back in Rome 2, but it seems this game will always be played with game-breaking issues. I look forward to seeing what the DLC has to offer. I'll have a review up as soon as I get my hands on it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.